Welcome back. Being located here in Paris, we get daily exposure to some of the world's finest luxury brands. However, forecasting for the luxury market is a completely different ballgame, based on sporadic purchasing passions and high-value items. Today on LokadTV, we're going to discuss a little bit more about this lucrative world and understand whether you can forecast for those items that you truly desire rather than actually need. So Johannes, we obviously know that the luxury market is very different to some of the more classic markets we work with, but what makes it so unique from kind of a purchasing perspective?
So there are many things that makes, I would say, luxury very unique. First of all, indeed, you are dealing with super high value items. I mean, I'm talking of jewelry, precious stones. You can have expensive bags or watches. You know, I would say the core luxury items. And typically, just to give you some context, you end up selling something like 1 or 2 units per product per store per year. So obviously, this is not exactly the ideal candidates for, let's say, time series forecasting, because when you're looking at a product that is only going to be, on the market for 2 years, and you're selling like 1 unit a year per store per product, it literally makes no sense to say we are going to have a time series that we tend to extend into the future. So if by forecasting we mean the classical time series perspective, then it's game over. You just can't do anything that is of interest, of practical interest. So that's maybe one of the key takeaway, is that we need to redefine in depth what we are trying to do when we say forecasting as far as I would say luxury items goes.
So typically in a supply chain, we might know what products to stock and where to put them. But what is the approach that kind of those luxury brands kind of take to that?
So the first key idea is that probably the primary challenge is to even decide what is the next product that you want to introduce. And yes, you can say it's all about the designer inspiration. Absolutely. I mean, if you don't have like the best designers to craft, the tremendously fabulous items that people are going to fall in love with and buy, you've lost. You cannot even be such in this world. But once you have that, there is still, I would say, a lot of, small adjustment that you can do in terms of pricing, positioning, so that you maximize your return. So that first question is even how do you quantitatively optimize what you introduce into your network? And then as soon as you decide that you have this tremendously fabulous item that you're going to push into your distribution channel, is how do you optimize your assortment? Because you see, if you think in terms of service levels or fill rate, luxury brand, it doesn't make any sense, just because stores are typically located in incredibly valuable location into metropoles, and so the store is typically way too small to hold the entire collection. So this is not a supermarket where you can have like 90% service. Let's say 97% service level. Doesn't make any sense. At most you can have, let's say you have a store that can hold, let's say 500 items put on display on a catalog of 5,000 items. So if you think in terms of service level, you have like 10% service level, but it doesn't make any sense to think of it that way. So the way you should think of it is that all your items literally compete for those extremely valuable placement in the store. So there is like a whole problem of assortment optimization. Obviously, you need some diversity. You need to have products that are only there for the show. I mean, maybe for example, you might have a watch that is above 100,000 euro, a piece that is like a masterpiece. But realistically speaking, maybe most of the expensive watch that you're selling are more like on the 10,000 euro range, as opposed to the masterpiece that is like very, very expensive.
So let's talk a bit about that product assortment. I mean, we obviously know they've got very large stores which seem to have next to nothing in them. So how do they actually know what items they should actually put on display?
So for most luxury brand, it's still a completely manual task done by the store manager or something very close to a store manager. So it's literally, it boils down to pure, I would say, lifelong expertise in crafting a beautiful shop. And I'm not denying that it's very important and that this expertise does matter. The problem is that it scales relatively poorly, just because, well, you might find a person that is like a genius of managing one store, and this person might actually be also managing a couple of other stores that are nearby. It's very hard to replicate that at scale into 40 countries, 40 large cities in the world, and then you might have people that were good at some point of their life, and then they are not so motivated anymore. They're not so good anymore. How do you know if a store is performing super good just because it's super well placed, or because the store manager is I would say the secret ingredient behind the success of the store? So I'm not denying that there is expertise extra, but then how do you make that super replicable and scalable? And our answer is quantitative optimization. And the key insight is that if you have the right statistical techniques, what you see in one store can be translated on what is happening on another store. Not entirely, obviously, geography differs. The market in South America is not the same as the market in Dubai, but still there are things to be statistically transferred from one situation to another. And what makes the luxury brand so complicated is that the assortment of the product you're selling typically is very diverse. So you have your 5,000 products, and you have maybe your 100 stores, and it happened that there is not two stores that have the same product at the same time. So again, classical statistical tools just do not work well, or do not work at all for those situations. But with the proper tools, you can literally do quantitative assortment for luxury brand, which is really maximizing the values that you generate with all your assets, which are those fantastic design on one side and those fantastic locations on the other side.
Okay, and you mentioned a bit earlier about pricing. How do these luxury brands go about determining where they should be pricing their products and where they should be positioning themselves in kind of the luxury market?
So again, pricing for luxury brand has a very different, I would say, meaning and angle than, let's say, what you will find in regular fashion brands. For example, if you have a true luxury brand, you never do discount ever. There is no promotion ever. And why is that? Because if you're buying a 20,000 euro watch, you do not want in the next 6 months or even years to see that this brand, this watch is now, I would say, on promotion at 15,000 euros. That's unthinkable. No, it cannot happen ever. So pricing is not about doing some kind of yield management. No, pricing is about creating super sustainable, super lasting value for your items, where literally, and that's what the most prestigious, let's say, watchmakers are achieving, is to say, when you're buying a Rolex, this is not, you're not spending money, this is an investment, and chances are that 10 years from now it will even have grown in value, which sometimes actually happen, which is a bit insane because it's not a productive asset, but nonetheless this is the reality of what they have achieved. So really the pricing should be understood as, how do I take price, and when I introduce a new product and I choose a price that will help me both grow my market, but also grow in a way that is kind of steering my prices upward, because people see more value and more in the products, and so are willing to pay more. So and again, in turn, if people are paying more, then you have more resources to make the products even more incredible. So that's kind of the virtuous cycle of those extremely successful brands that they managed to, grow into things that were even more expensive while actually making the products even more desirable in the process.
Okay, and you mentioned that there's no sort of sales or promotions. So what do these luxury brands do to kind of get rid of excess stock and have turnover of that stock?
Worst case, destroy. If, for example, you're dealing with special case such as jewelry or watches, you can literally recycle them. The precious metals, the thing about precious metals is that they are 100% recyclable. Precious gemstones, can just be taken from one piece of jewelry to another. So basically, it's literally you recycle the precious materials and you produce a new product. If you're into clothing or leather stuff, etc., you have a few options, but mostly it has to be destroyed.
So basically what we're kind of saying is these luxury brands have to kind of gamble and get the initial pricing right straight from the start.
Absolutely. I mean, when you push a product to the market, you're kind of stuck with this retail price, because as soon as you sell the first unit to the first client, this client should never come back to the store and see that what they have just purchased is like now I would say on the cheap. Actually, quite the opposite. You might actually raise your price, because then people come back and say, "Oh, I did really a good job. This bag that was like 800 euros, it's like 1,000 euro. So in this direction, you can do it. The other way, no, you can't." But fundamentally, the question is, how do you quantitatively optimize your strategy? You can say, well, I'm just going to do like guesswork built upon a lifetime of expertise. That's good. That's how the most successful brands have been doing it historically. But if they start competing about people who can combine a lifelong expertise plus tools to do quantitative optimization, because again, the problem is that as you grow and you end up with thousands of very diverse products, that markets are changing faster, that this is fashion also, so things change in terms of trends. I mean, all of that, it's a lot of information to process. You have many different markets, and how can you expect to have like a strategy that is like consistent and capable when you're both trying to address, the market in South America, in Southern Asia, in North Europe, in etc. I mean, that's so much diversity that there's limits of what the human mind can do in terms of pure numerical optimization.
Okay, let's move on to that numeric optimization then. What's Lokad's kind of take on the industry? Because it seems there's so much kind of randomness, sales demand is very sporadic. So how can Lokad actually do anything here?
So indeed, demand is very intermittent. I mean, we're talking of selling 1 or 2 units a year per store per product or something, sometimes a little more, but not that much more. So you need to have the proper class of tools that can extract information from this sort of situation. The key insight is that if you had only one store, and for those products in this store you're selling like 1 unit a year, you would not be able to do anything statistically speaking. But chances are that you have, let's say, 50 stores. So those products actually in aggregate, you are doing more, and you can do things in statistics because you have more stores. Also, you should not think of what you're selling as one point in a time series. You know the client, you have the identity of the client. Usually it might come as a surprise, but luxury brands is all about repeat customers. It's not people who just buy one expensive watch in their life. No, the people who are like amateur of beautiful watches, they are going to buy one more watch every couple of years. So it's like repeat customers, even if it's not like weekly shopping. So the proper model that we have developed, for example, they are leveraging the fact that you have a graph that connects the stores, the products, and the clients. And that's a lot of information to leverage. statistically speaking, to make better decisions. What kind of decisions are we talking of? There is a choice of assortment, what product to put, what is the products that you need to keep in every store, knowing that it's not about deciding whether you have like 5 or 10 units. No, usually the problem is, do you have 1 unit of this product or 0? You know, it's just because if you're selling the product, if you sell the product, you can replenish the next day. It's no problem, you know. So the question is assortment optimization. Do I want to have this product on display at this location? And then there is the question of inventory allocation. Again, you're producing so few units that usually, frequently what happens is that you're not even producing 1 unit per store. So you might have 50 stores, but you're only producing 20 units for this product. So you decide, you know, how you allocate the thing. And then there is a curse of when you do it manually, is that you tend to say, oh, my best performing store, let's say my store in Dubai, is always going to have 1 of those 20 units. But when you do that, it means that some stores are radically more appealing and obviously more successful than others. But then you might have your store in Helsinki that is performing not nearly as well, but also this store is almost, when it comes to allocate those 20 units to the 50 stores, the store in Helsinki is always a store that is not served by this new product being pushed to the market. So that's the sort of problems that you want to solve, this being smarter. And also, if a product do not sell in a store for a couple of months, maybe it's time to move this product from one store to another. And again, because you have expensive products, transportation cost is not so much an issue. The real cost, actually, what we have measured is that the real cost is that when you decide to move a product from one store to another, during the transportation time, the product is not on display anymore and thus cannot generate demand. And that's also something that is very specific of luxury brand, is that the stock generates the demand. It's because people can see the product that that it triggers the willingness to actually buy them.
So what we're kind of saying here is we're not actually forecasting future demand. What we're actually doing is optimizing a product assortment and optimizing those goods that you're actually selling.
Actually, we are forecasting the demand, but in a very, very specific way, of actually having the perspective of all the clients, all the loyal clients that have already bought, you know, through your networks, and to statistically analyze what they're looking for, so that we can optimize in every single store, what should be put on display to satisfy, you know, those desire of this client population. So they say so the forecast, it's still a statistical forecast in the sense that you're making a numerical statement about the future, but it's nothing like a time series forecast, like the weather forecast, where you have a time series that just, you know, go up and down, and you're trying to predict the curve. It doesn't work like that. I mean, the demand is too intermittent for that. But still, it doesn't mean that you cannot extract any information from what you've observed in the past.
Okay, and so to sort of conclude today, what steps can luxury brands kind of take in order to work on their expertise, but also improve on that and take into account a quantitative vision as well?
So I think the first stake is to start to consider that quantitative optimization is even possible. It is. But usually, you know, most of those brands are I would say right now, I've been doing it, you know, things manually, basically being faced with a situation that in terms of tools capable of doing like number crunching, there was absolutely nothing that worked. So, and indeed, until very recently, that was true. So, but the world is changing. I mean, the world, especially in terms, there has been like a series of breakthrough in statistics, modern statistics, the sort of things that power deep learning and autonomous vehicles. It's bizarre to think it's connected, but it is connected in the sense that it's the same sort of breakthrough in fundamental statistics that are at play. And suddenly it is possible to deliver those quantitative optimization, which means that a lot of things, such as should you every single day rebalance your items within your store network, this can be achieved in a way that is like beyond what you can do manually, just because it's as if you can spend a near infinite amount of human time, but thinking hours of thinking for every single product of where this product should be reallocated, considering the entire history of every single client that has ever visited the store and this sort of things.
Okay, great. We're going to have to leave it there, but thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
So thanks very much for tuning in. We'll be back again next time with another episode. But until then, thanks for watching.